JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com, code PODCAST. That's JamesAllen.com, code PODCAST.
My days working, taking care of my little ones can be a lot. I checked out care.com and it was so easy for me to find local, experienced, and background check sitters. Finding our babysitter was way more affordable than I thought. Care.com makes it super easy. Search for qualified candidates. You can view their profiles, read reviews and ratings, check their availability, send messages directly, and get the help that you need. Care.com should be every person's go-to.
I'm Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com.
And I'm Scott Chasen.
This is a replay of WIBW show, The Drive.
Here's this week's episode on the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network.
Good evening, Wildcat JF fans, and welcome to The Drive, sponsored by Briggs Auto Group. I am Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com, and the man in a different town than me is Mr. Scott Chasen. I am fresh back from Fort Worth. No time to make it to Topeka tonight, but I'm here with you in the magic of technology, Scott.
Yeah, well, Fitz, as we know, and as now the viewers will know, Fitz made record time back from the Dallas-Fort Worth area just to be here, by the way. But, man, that K-State TCU game was exciting for a number of different reasons. I'm really excited to hear Fitz's take about that today.
Yeah, it was an interesting night in Fort Worth for the Wildcats. But remember, folks, you can interact with us on social media at Facebook.com/The Drive Show, on Twitter at The Drive 13. And, of course, answer our weekly poll question and make your game predictions on our Twitter page. And remember, if you ever missed an episode of The Drive, you can listen to an audio-only version that does appear each Monday morning in the form of a podcast at GoPowerCat.com. And we start things off with our 2-minute drill. This segment of the 2-minute drill is sponsored by Vanderbilt's Your Work Boot Center.
Well, Fitz, after losing quarterback Adrian Martinez to injury after one possession, Kansas State built a 28-10 lead at number 8 TCU, and then it all fell apart as K-State lost 38-28. Fitz, what went wrong for the Cats in surrendering that lead and falling to undefeated TCU?
Unfortunately for Kansas State, Adrian Martinez was not the only injury. There was a lot of injuries, and not just a lot of guys, a lot of important pieces. In fact, almost every important player on this team, the ones you know the best, were injured, either out or slowed down, including Deuce Vaughn. Now, this knee injury for Adrian was something he suffered at Iowa State. It's not that severe in terms of structural. It's not a structural injury, and it had healed up. But boy, he got it hit again on the first play of the game, and then he came out after that first drive. In comes Will Howard. We'll talk about him quite a bit in this show, and Will was absolutely spectacular, scoring touchdowns, helping the Wildcats score touchdowns on their first 4 possessions with him at quarterback to build a 28-10 lead, and you saw the final score of 38-10 or 38-28. That was it for the Wildcats. They never scored in the second half as TCU adjusted their defense a little bit, amped up the pressure on Will Howard somewhat. And also, honestly, I thought K-State got way too conservative after that offensively and lost all their momentum. In fact, on the final possession of that first half, they went 3 and out with Will Howard at quarterback, gave TCU the ball back. TCU went down and scored right before half, and then they got the ball to start the second half and scored again. So in back-to-back possessions, 28-10 became 28-24, and it was a new game, and TCU had all the momentum, and the crowd was in the game. It was a heck of an environment down at Fort Worth. It is a great football team. TCU is the best team in the conference after seeing them in person, no doubt about it. Are they an elite team? Are they a playoff-worthy team? I'm not sure anyone in the Big 12 is. But now, as we sit here today, TCU is probably the only team that could possibly get the Big 12 into the college football playoff. And they've got some other challenges. But, boy, they've cleared a lot of hurdles, Scott, including Kansas State. Bad loss for Kansas State in terms of wanting to be the top team in the Big 12, but they get to regather themselves against Oklahoma State this week. We'll see if they can get healthy.
Yeah, Fitz, I was prepared to come here and talk about how well Kansas State played because quite frankly, I thought early on that was some of the best football they had played, even with backup quarterback, like you mentioned, Will Howard in the game. TCU, what it does, and when that offense gets going, it becomes really hard to stop. And yeah, it felt like injuries really hurt K-State in that one. So it was a tough game, but I came out of that still thinking, hey, those were two good teams on the field there.
Yeah, they were, and unfortunately, K-State really ran thin on players, particularly on defense. Mm-hmm. Well, Scott, Kansas football limps into a bye week, having lost 3 straight games. How badly do the Jayhawks need the bye right now?
Well, they do, and especially after another loss to Baylor that became a double-digit loss. I think the final score ended up kind of being indicative of the margin this game was played at, because Kansas went down 14-0 just about immediately to start this game. The defense gave up 35, but I actually thought they played great. They gave KU 3 takeaways. It was really the offense that hung them out to dry over and over. Fitz, first half of this game alone, KU had 3 3-and-outs, and they fumbled twice on the first play to start a drive. When Kansas got to defend Baylor drives that started in Baylor territory, more often than not, the KU defense got a stop, did enough. But that offense put them in that huge hole early. Again, 2 fumbles to start drives, 3 3-and-outs, and that really put them in a bad spot they were never able to come back from. But now comes the bye week, and Fitz, just like K-State, being a little bit banged up, Kansas is as banged up as it's been right now. In fact, Kansas was obviously without its number 1 quarterback. Kansas was without its top-performing running back. Kansas was without its top-performing wide receiver. Kansas was without its top-performing cornerback. Kansas number 1 defensive end, Lonnie Phelps, he's been banged up down the stretch here. And oh, by the way, Kansas had 2 injuries on the offensive line that happened in this game, although one of those players, Earl Bostic, the left tackle, came back in and played. This Kansas team is starting to get banged up and starting to feel, what it's like to go through the season week after week. Lance Leipold has talked about, too, this is about as late a bye week as Kansas really has ever gotten and as Lance Leipold has ever gotten. But he's maintained it's better to have it this late in the season than it would have been to have it week 2 or week 3 and so early on. I think Lance Leipold is happy that the Jayhawks have this week, this week off after 8 games to have that chance to recover, to refocus going into the last 4 games of the season where, obviously, Fitz, they're still sitting there. They are 1 game away from bowl eligibility. But I think this team is going through a lot right now. It's more than just the quarterback with Jalen Daniels, and just like K-State, it's more than guys being out. It's guys being banged up who are playing through it too. Bye week comes at a perfect time. Kansas needs to get healthy in a hurry.
Yeah, that was difficult to watch because they just didn't have enough good players to keep up in that game.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Fitz, as you saw in Fort Worth and talked about a little bit, the TCU Horned Frogs, they're the lone undefeated Big 12 squad remaining. Are the Horned Frogs the class of the Big 12, or have they been a little fortunate on the path to 7-0?
Both. I think that's fair to say both. And that might be true of most teams. If you're undefeated, you've had a little fortune. And the fortune for the Frogs has been the fact that almost, I think, in every game they've played in the Big 12, the opposing quarterback has been hurt. And that's a little odd, and I'm not implying anything with TCU. They're a very physical football team, but that is a fortunate break. While on the other hand, Scott, it was kind of interesting. K-State got after Max Duggan a little bit, their quarterback, and even had a couple personal foul late hit penalties. And boy, that kid just kept getting up. TCU takes on the personality of their quarterback. They're tough. They're feisty. They don't go away, and they keep rallying against good teams. They came back from 17 down in the first half against Oklahoma State last week, 18 down against K-State this week. That's tough to do, and even if you're at home in this conference, that's pretty remarkable. This is the best team. They still have Texas in front of them. They still have some other challenges in front of them. But if the Big 12 wants to put a team into the college football playoff, this is their chance. This is their team. But I don't see how anyone in this conference is going to go through these schedules unbeaten, unscathed, and then TCU will have to clear a hurdle of playing someone they've already played and maybe already beaten in Arlington for the Big 12 championship. Yep, the Frogs are really good, but if you look at Sonny Dykes, the new coach's background, he often gets his teams off to fast starts that fizzle out. I'm not sure this Frog team will do it unless the injury bug catches up to them as badly as it caught up to K-State in this game.
Yeah, Fitz, the point you made, too, about backup quarterbacks is especially kind of funny or relevant and just matters here because Max Duggan did not win the TCU starting job to begin the season either. So it's been the year of the backup quarterback really in the Big 12. But yeah, I think I agree. I think at this point you have to give TCU the credit, even though that path has been a little bit fortunate going up against a lot of backup and sometimes third-string quarterbacks. It's just they keep winning, they keep finding ways to win. Yeah, it's tough to see them going undefeated, and even if they do, maybe even winning that Big 12 title game, it's hard to imagine it. But hey, 7 weeks in, they're 7-0, and I don't think anyone would have picked that, myself included.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now a quick look at the poll question results. The poll questions are brought to you by Midland Exteriors. Love the home you live in today. Call today for a free estimate.
Well, last week's question was, what was your biggest issue with the Big 12 preseason basketball poll? We look at the results. A, KU getting picked second to Baylor. That ended with 32% of the vote. K-State being picked last, 39% of the vote. Texas getting a first place vote, got 15%. Other, no problem, 14%. Fitz, I think I agree with the voters here. I think K-State picked last was probably my biggest issue.
Yeah, that might be fair, but we'll see how the season plays out going in with the rebuilt roster, new coach. I get it. Mm-hmm. This week's question is, with one ranked opponent, Texas remaining, will TCU at 7-0 right now run the table in the Big 12? The challenging answers are A, yes, and B, no. Vote on our Twitter page at The Drive 13.
And I hung Fitz out to dry there because Texas in the poll, I think, now is unranked, so we changed that graphic on him last minute. That's on me. That's not on Fitz. I'm self-scouting. Okay, going into a bye week. We'll do better next week, Fitz. I'm very sorry. That will do it for this half of the 2-minute drill, but we will be right back with more on KU and K-State on The Drive.
Hey, Mel, Bri here. Gotta work from home today because the whole family caught a nasty. Daddy! Hey, Mikey, if you're gonna puke, find the popcorn bowl! But my availability is 110%. Coincidentally, so is my fever. Kidding. Mel, I'm so cold but hot. But I'm gonna get you that budget just as soon as... Mikey, popcorn bowl!
Press 1 to use Instacart and get your family sick day essentials delivered in as fast as 30 minutes. Press 2 to keep working. Do not press 2. Just use Instacart, Brian.
Welcome back to The Drive, fueled by BriggsAuto.com.
It's time to continue our weekly 2-minute drill. This segment of the 2-minute drill is sponsored by Copeland Insurance Agency, part of your community for more than 60 years.
Well, Fitz, Kansas State meets Oklahoma State on Saturday in Manhattan for a nationally televised game with Oklahoma State. Fitz, will the Wildcats be ready for this big stage?
I honestly don't know, Scott. It's kind of funny because K-State's been wanting to be on national TV all year. I mean, they've been on cable channels, but not over-the-air signal. They will be on Fox, and they're coming off not only a loss, but a game in which they were decimated by injury. So I'm not sure. And if you're Kansas State, you missed an opportunity with a win. You would have had College Game Day in Manhattan. They're instead going to Jackson State and Southern, and that's pretty cool in itself. But the Wildcats will have to rally, and every day or every other day at Go Power Cat, I do a video called The Daily Delivery. You can get it at YouTube if you want. And it's this week's about the guys that were called upon in this game and didn't quite get it done at TCU have to step up. I don't know if Daniel Green, star middle linebacker, will play. I don't know if Adrian Martinez will play. Deuce Vaughn and Felix Anudike-Uzomah are both injured. Ben Sennett, the starting tight end, might be injured and not able to play. The list is very long. Julius Brents, first-team all-conference preseason cornerback, pulled a hamstring. We don't know the severity of it, but at best, he will be somewhat limited in this game. So players are going to have to step up and get things done for Kansas State and play at a much higher level. Oklahoma State's an extremely good football team. They, too, like TCU, are extremely physical. And we'll see if K-State can survive this battle because, oh, by the way, even after Oklahoma State, if they win that game, they have Texas coming in. I've called this the proving ground. This is a gauntlet of 3 teams that K-State's got to run through. And they have failed their first step. But the next 2 steps are at home. Should be a great environment. 2:30 p.m. kick Saturday at the Bill. We'll see if the Wildcats can rally and get back on track, as they do still have dreams of being in the Big 12 championship game. And now all they got to do is continue to win. But that's not easy in this conference.
Yeah, Fitz, KU plays Oklahoma State after its own bye week. And in some ways, I think KU's a little bit lucky to have K-State going up against Oklahoma State. That should be a physical matchup. Those two teams will probably beat each other up a little bit. Meanwhile, KU's just sitting at home, resting, watching, waiting, and seeing if they can replicate whatever K-State does that works pretty well.
I thought it would be great for K-State. The same thing with Oklahoma State playing TCU the week before. K-State was so beaten up they didn't get fully healthy. Oh, well, That's how it works out. Scott, at Big 12 Media Day, KU coach Bill Self continued to hype up returning forward Jalen Wilson. How much are the Jayhawks counting on Wilson this year?
A lot, Fitz. And Bill Self is already using the line that he's got to be about an All-American for KU to have a special season and the type of season that, one of the best KU teams end up having, going to the Final Four, going on those runs. It's similar to Thomas Robinson in 2012 when KU lost a lot and they needed Robinson to be in first-team All-American, and he was. And that team made it to the championship game. Now, you're seeing some highlights from the COVID year, from 2020, a game I remember very well being at because there was no one allowed in the gym other than media and players and coaches. It was very quiet. You could hear every word. In fact, I believe KU got 2 technical fouls in this game because, yes, you could hear every word that was said on the court and by the coaches all the way around. This was a game where Jalen Wilson absolutely dominated. He dominated against an athletic Kentucky team. Kansas put him at the 5 spot, and he's really this one guy that Kansas has that can play on the wing, can play the 5, and all of a sudden they're running up and down the court. He's athletic. He's able to get on the glass. He had back-to-back 10-rebound games in that stretch with the Kentucky game, 23 points, 10 rebounds, actually. Those exact numbers in back-to-back games. And he's shown improvement in other areas. Last year, he was the guy that teams would pick on defensively for much of the year. They would go at him late in games. Who is Jalen Wilson guarding? Okay, that guy is getting involved in a pick and roll. But late in the season, Jalen Wilson got better defensively. He got better. He more than held his own. He helped this KU team not only with his scoring, not only with his rebounding, but with his defense en route to a national title. Fitz, it's no mistake, it's no accident that Bill Self is putting so much on the shoulders of Jalen Wilson, a guy he has said is a fiery leader, can get the most out of teammates, can maybe, have the chance to be the next great Kansas wing in a line of a bunch of them that they've had, most recently obviously being Ochai Agbaji, but also Christian Brown. Christian Brown was this team's fiery, tenacious kind of guy last year that when things were going wrong, he would make a play, he'd start barking, he'd start yelling at people, and all of a sudden KU's getting fired up and getting into it. They need a little bit of that from Jalen Wilson in addition to those big numbers if they're going to be a great team this year.
Yeah, I'm be interested to see how much he steps up because they're really going to need him to be a very significant force for this team.
Yeah, for sure.
And now we step out of bounds, and Out of Bounds is brought to you by Darrah's Corner Market. We love local, and we are local for you. Well, Scott, the Kansas City Chiefs head into their bye week after facing off with San Francisco and winning out in the Bay Area. What do you think of Kansas City after Game 7?
Well, Fitz, I thought this was a promising game, not just because of the offensive eruption, but because it seems like the Chiefs are figuring things out. It seems like they're getting more comfortable. They're figuring out how to best use Juju Smith-Schuster. It felt like MVS had the opportunity for some big plays in this game. Obviously, Travis Kelce is always going to be there, and I think he ended up, just a couple yards short of that 100-yard mark. And McCole Hardman obviously had, his best game of the season, his best game of his career, when you consider all he did, both running, receiving, scoring a few times. Fitz, this is an offense with a lot of different pieces that has obviously lost a great piece in Tyreek Hill. I think if you're a Chiefs fan and you want to see this team doing well, you want to see them get more and more comfortable with that offense as the season goes, especially as it turns out that the AFC West is nowhere near as good as maybe we thought it would be coming into the year. I think this was a great step forward going into the bye week that the Chiefs can now sit back, watch some other teams play ball, and continue to kind of find new ways to use these new pieces for the offense.
Yeah, the way that Juju Smith-Schuster stepped up with being kind of the Tyreek Hill version of this offense in this game against San Francisco, I think is really significant for the Chiefs going forward. Yeah. Now let's hear from the fans. Our fan question is sponsored by Meadowlark Retirement awaits in Manhattan, where you can live your way every day.
Well, our fan question this week is, Fitz, what do you think of how Will Howard played? And that is from Seth in Topeka.
Look, Will Howard has had his moments for Kansas State, but as he kind of played more and more, his output kind of dropped. So when he came into the game, I think there was a little bit of anxiety around it for most K-State fans, but Will just played tremendously. And we thought as the game went on, well, they kind of knew Adrian was hurt and Will's been preparing. As it turned out, no, Adrian was a full go, Adrian Martinez, and they had planned on him playing the whole game. Will Howard took no more snaps than usual in practice, and he was that prepared. He has not played this season because they're trying to get him redshirted. They still can play him in 3 more games to accomplish that, but it was quite a performance by a quarterback that hadn't been on the field yet this year. It was impressive and a good sign for next season when he'll probably be the starter.
Yeah, it's the best football I've seen him play by far, really. He was tremendously impressive and, obviously a huge part of K-State building that lead in the first place, too.
Yep, absolutely.
Remember to ask us your questions on our Facebook page and on Twitter at The Drive 13. And when we return, we'll look at our predictions here on The Drive.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
Welcome back to The Drive, fueled by BriggsAuto.com.
Well, it's time to head down the home stretch of this week's show, and let's take a look at our predictions. Predictions are brought to you by Kites and Kites Aggieville Draft House, meeting your friends at Kites and the Draft House since 1954. Remember to make your weekly predictions on our Twitter page at The Drive 13. Here are last week's results. Everyone went 2-1. We were all above average, and that's the way we should be in life, Scott.
Yeah, fits it. A good week for everyone. Everyone can be happy, and somehow the fans are still beating us.
Let's get going with this week's picks. Now, all of these games were 1 or 2 point spreads, so we made them all pick'ems, which means just pick the winner. Oklahoma State at K-State. Scott, you say.
I think I'll go with Oklahoma State in this one, Fitz. You've talked about the health for Kansas State. I think Oklahoma State is up there as one of the best teams in the conference, but yeah, it would not shock me in the slightest if this ends up being a pretty good one.
I'm going to throw a little prayer here that K-State gets healthy. I'll take the Wildcats in this one.
Well, next is Baylor at Texas Tech. This is another pick'em, obviously, and Fitz, I kind of like Baylor in this one. I like the way they've been playing. I'll go with the Bears.
Well, I think Texas Tech is finding themselves. They got a new quarterback. They're at home again. I think Texas Tech is going to be a problem down the stretch for a lot of teams. I got the Red Raiders here. And our last game of the week is Oklahoma at Iowa State. These two teams are 2 of the worst in the conference. Go figure that out. I think Iowa State finds a way to win. I will take the Clones over the Sooners.
Yeah, it fits. Oklahoma can look really, really good and also really, really bad. I'm going to bank on this being a really, really good week. But, Oklahoma has not done a whole lot to inspire confidence.
Yep, well, they have it. Again, make your picks on our Twitter page at The Drive 13. And it's time for our On the Clock segment. On the Clock is sponsored by Carpet One. Buy local for a strong local community. And we start off with Mr. Scott Chasen.
Well, Fitz, I mentioned going into the bye week, Kansas needs to rest up and get healthy, and obviously the quarterback position continues to be a big part of that. Jalen Daniels was seen warming up on the field before the game. He obviously didn't play, and the reports the latest from ESPN is that the earliest he could return would be that Oklahoma State game. Now, keep in mind that's earliest. That's not a guarantee, and it's still ambiguous from that point on. I've also covered a Kansas team where Thomas McVitie was on the field warming up week to week, even though he was ultimately out for the season too. So I wouldn't read too much into that, but KU can obviously be much better if it gets its starting quarterback back. The last 2 weeks, that offense has gotten into a hole that even if the defense was playing well, even if they played well after that, that hole was too big for them to climb out of. So if it is Jason Bean, this KU team needs to figure out how to start a lot faster moving forward.
Well, K-State basketball fans, I know your Wildcats were picked for last in the Big 12 Conference, but don't fret because I think this is going to be a pretty decent team and they're going to be entertaining. And the fans must agree because Bramlage Coliseum is basically sold out. So you better get your tickets if you want them. And that's it for this week's show. We will see you next week right here and all week on social media.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.